Hello students, today we will be looking at a concept that is becoming very important today in our contemporary times when there is so much talk about sustainable development, and that is the concept of adaptive reuse. And we will be talking about adaptive reuse in terms of architecture, in terms of buildings. So of the new concepts and practices that are coming up today, many of the contemporary ideas I have talked about in this series of lectures, this is one concept that interests me quite a lot because of the benefits we accrue through adaptive reuse. The whole concept of a circular economy is very strongly benefited by adaptive reuse because we are able to renew an object, renew a building to a new use. Recycling is now second nature to modern communities, particularly with regard to environmental sustainability. This has been there in our culture for a long time when in our homes, for example, we used to take some object meant for some other purpose and, for example, turn a Coke can into a pen stand. That is adaptive reuse. The aim was to reduce, reuse and recycle waste. Our original incentive or the reason why we used to do it was economic, that we can save some money by reusing a product and making it adaptive to another use. All of us have done many such small activities when we were children. So to find new life in everything from bottles to boxes to clothes and vehicles and then to buildings. A process that changes a disused or ineffective item into a new item that can be used for a completely different purpose. Sometimes nothing changes but only the use of the item. For example, in this picture, there is this old building and how it has been converted after. Now please understand that there is a difference between renovation and adaptive reuse. In renovation, the items or the building's original use doesn't change. If it's a house, it continues to remain a house. If it's an office building, it continues to remain an office building. But in adaptive reuse, the very use of the building changes. That is why it is called adaptive reuse. There are some such very simple examples like the use of water bottles as a landscape arrangement, or again a water bottle as a candle, or an old vehicle as a landscape feature. These are all examples of adaptive reuse. In buildings, it is when old buildings outlive their original purpose, they can be reused, and this process of adapting buildings to a new use while retaining their historical value or features is called adaptive reuse. On this slide is a very interesting example of this Jægersborg water tower, which has been converted to a youth housing center in Denmark, and here is the water tower, the tank still above, and as far as we understand, the tank is still working as a water tank, but the entire building has been converted into these youth apartments that you see here in the plan. So originally built as an RCC water tower, converted to this youth housing complex and community center, which showcases how modern architecture can recycle industrial heritage for the sake of social benefit. The key adaptive reuse points in this building were, first was the structural retention. What are we able to retain? The original cylindrical concrete shell and central core was preserved and reused because it was very durable industrial architecture, and that is something we see over and over again, like in Manhattan, in New York for example, the use of warehouses to convert them into open plan apartments is like durable industrial architecture adaptively reused. And there is a lot of such industrial architecture or buildings that have become unusable over time, or they have fallen to disuse. They are not being used anymore, and they are all over the world, including in India. To be able to adaptively reuse them, knowing that the structure is very durable and stable, is an extremely sustainable idea. In this case, a new program was inserted, 36 student apartments were inserted into the water tower, and using prefabricated wooden modules they were put together. This is also community activation because the lower floors were repurposed into a youth and community center, having a shared kitchen, meeting rooms and common spaces. then the key adaptive reuse points are that what we gain out of it. Not only do we gain accommodation, but it has got transparency and light, because the concrete shell is punctured with horizontal glass bands and terraces, so daylight filters into the interiors, and plus you get a fantastic panoramic view. It's very symbolic renewal, because the project indicates social sustainability, transforming a utility into a place of habitation, learning and interaction. Therefore, in a sense, adaptive reuse is exactly what is required in a sustainability economy or a sustainability agenda. We know, and we've seen this earlier when we were talking about green buildings, sustainability has three aspects to it. There is social sustainability, that's to do with people. There is economic sustainability, got to do with money or profits. And then there is environmental sustainability, got to do with our environment. All of this put together forms sustainable, the three aspects of sustainable development, and adaptive reuse addresses all three. We will see how environmentally it benefits because it brings about lowering of embodied energy, embodied carbon. Economically it benefits because you are reusing a building all over again, and socially because you are preserving heritage. So here, for example, an industrial space has been converted into an apartment. Or for that matter, one of the most famous examples of adaptive reuse is Tate Modern Art Gallery by Herzog and de Meuron. They took an old power station called the Battersea Power Station that had fallen to disuse along the river Thames, and they converted that into this fantastic world famous art gallery. The process of adapting old structures for purposes other than that which was initially intended, when the original use of the structure changes or it is no longer required, as with older buildings from the Industrial Revolution era, for example the Battersea Power Station. So here this massive volume which was a part of the power station is now this fantastic exhibition space. The architects decided to reinvent the current building instead of demolishing it, and Tate Modern is a classic example of adaptive reuse. Architects have opportunity to change the primary function of the structure while retaining some of the existing architectural details that make the building unique. For example, here an old railway station has been converted into a museum called Musée d'Orsay in Paris by Gay Ollenti in 1986. And here the architectural details unique to the railway station have been retained. Adaptive reuse is self-defeating if it fails to protect the building's heritage values. So here it is, Musée d'Orsay by Gay Ollenti, how wonderfully the station has been preserved as a museum. In local communities, buildings like unused schools, post office buildings can be adapted for reuse as retail stores or offices. The key factor is there is land conservation and there is also reduce in urban sprawl, because you are not making a new building, you are adapting an old building for a new use, thus reducing or restricting the spread of the urban sprawl. For example, here this is a school in Canada that has been transformed and adapted to a modern space while respecting the architectural significance of the old school. Or for smart growth, it's more efficient, more environmentally responsible to redevelop an old building which is close to the urban core than to build a completely new construction. Another wonderful example is the National Gallery in Singapore. There are these two colonial buildings, in the midst of which it has been, this part has been covered up. The two colonial buildings have been put together into the National Art Museum, and it unified two heritage buildings under a new glass and steel canopy, inserted new climate controlled galleries without altering the facades of the buildings, and it connects the existing civic memory of these buildings with a modern cultural use. It repositioned old government buildings as vibrant public spaces, thus contributing to the social fabric of the city. Peter Cowan, the two important persons or researchers that you should read in order to understand more deeply about adaptive reuse is Peter Cowan and David Kincaid. So Peter Cowan said that most buildings are physically suitable for adaptation to most uses. They are influenced by the proposition long life, loose fit. In fact, it is also been talked about that we should design our buildings in a manner that they have a long life and loose fit, that they are flexible enough to be changed to a new use in a later date or a later time when the current use is not needed. In fact, that connects with the entire story of why we have multi-purpose, multi-use and flexible buildings today. More and more buildings have got this kind of fundamental basis in it so that we are able to renew them, adapt them to new uses as time passes by. So the concept of the building having a long life and a loose fit, which means that it can be fit to different purposes in different eras. David Kincaid said it should be the guiding principle behind most design briefs. This is what I talked about just now, that even when you design a building today, the guiding principle should be what would happen to the building 25 or 30 years from today. It need not be demolished, it need not be pulled down, can it be adaptively reused? Thus the building should be designed with long life, loose fit principle. This is an example of an old barn house which you see here that has been converted, adaptively reused into this house. These are the plan, the section and the axonometric of the house, how wonderfully we can adapt it. So here I will also point out another thing which I believe David Kincaid himself said. He said when you want to adaptively reuse a building, it is not about comparing areas. For example, you require 100 square meters of area to make this particular building or to adaptively reuse an existing building. For example, you want to convert, let's say, a school building into an office building, a co-working office space. Now, if you want to compare area with area, it's got 100 square meters, I require 100 square meters, so it fits in. No, it does not work like that. It's not area to area, it is use to use. For example, it will be easy to convert the school into a co-working space simply because it has got these class modules already in it, and those modules can work as individual co-working spaces. So the fit is happening not with area comparison, that total area is available so I can adapt this building to this use. No, it has got to be function to function comparison. A given function of a school, for example, can be converted into a co-working office space, or a given barn house, for example, here that we see here, this old barn has been converted into a modern house. It's fitting a function that is able to fit into this space. The other thing that holds true for this old barn is again the concept of long life, loose fit. It's a very loose fit building, it's a barn. It's like a single envelope, and thus the house has been easily fit into it. David Kincaid encourages adaptive reuse as a serious alternative to demolition and new build, but he does not help us to determine which new use is best suited to a particular building in a particular location at a particular time. That is the job of the designer or the architect who is involved in that project. Even that design team is the best placed to take the right decision about the adaptive reuse. Where a building can no longer function with its original use is where adaptive reuse comes in. A new use through adaptation may be the only way to preserve its historical significance. For example, here there is a bunker underneath this house which fell to disuse. Therefore, it was the existing concrete bunker. Now, you have got a very solid, durable foundation of the concrete bunker, and that is become the foundation for this new home. So going back to the earlier slide, I talked about how industrial buildings have got a durable structure and they can be reused again quite easily. Or for example here, this church building has been turned into luxury condominiums. Again the same thing, older buildings, very durable structure. Therefore, many old structures, like I said, are still very good condition, therefore reusable, having a fairly stable structural system, ease of adaptive reuse, an old building to a new use. So these are some of the pictures of this, the Lucas, how wonderfully they have converted this into these condominiums. And here, for example, there was a neoclassical skyscraper in which there used to be a bank. Now it has been converted into a co-working office space and cafeteria for a young tech company, or collective office and cafeteria for this tech company, and you can see these office modules within this old building as collective workspaces. The most successful built heritage adaptive reuse projects are those that best respect and retain the building's heritage significance while adding a contemporary layer that provides it future value. So, a school which has been adaptively reused to apartments, sometimes adaptive reuse is only way in which the building's fabric can be properly cared for while making a better use of the building itself. So many times we sometimes have monuments or old buildings that are not used. They fall to disuse, and because nobody cares for them, they become dilapidate very quickly, they become waste very quickly. Or even when we have monuments that are there for the sake of people visiting them, sometimes they also are not being able to be looked after as well as we want to. Adaptive reuse sometimes works much better. I'll give you a couple of pictures to indicate this problem to you. The benefit of adaptive reuse in heritage buildings, let's take the Australian example, we'll see 2-3 aspects. One is the environmental benefit. Because of adaptive reuse, it has a major role in sustainable development. Because it involves historical buildings, environmental benefits are more significant as historical buildings offer so much to the landscape, identity and amenity of communities they belong. So we are looking at the social aspect, the benefit that the building is offering. Then one main environmental benefit of reusing buildings is the retention of the building's original embodied energy, that is the energy of the materials which are embedded in the building. I had talked about it earlier. All materials require energy to manufacture them, and when that material is embedded in the building, that becomes the embedded energy or the embodied energy of the building. Very simple. If we reuse the building, we don't have to add lot of new materials again. The old building materials are getting reused, old structure is getting reused. That embodied energy has already been accounted for in the old project. So logically in the new project, that much embodied energy or carbon content is zero. By reusing buildings, their embodied energy is retained. That means that we don't add to it, making the project much more environmentally sustainable than an entirely new construction. New buildings have much higher embodied energy cost than buildings that are adaptively reused. Australian Greenhouse Office, reuse of building materials usually involves saving of approximately 95% of the embodied energy over new materials. The social benefits, because we are reusing heritage buildings, it makes a lot of good sense. We are keeping and reusing historic buildings, like I told you a couple of slides back, long-term benefits for communities that value such buildings. For example, the Zhenfu Palace Museum in Beijing, adaptive reuse of 4 historic buildings into a reception center for visitors and museum of Chinese architecture with flexible exhibit space. Social benefits, we restore and maintain heritage significance of a building and thus help ensure its survival rather than it falling into disrepair through neglect and even becoming completely unrecognizable over time. Heritage buildings that are sensitively recycled can continue to survive, can continue to be used. This is again the pictures of the Zhenfu Palace Museum. So this is what I was talking about when I talk about falling into misuse or disrepair. These are 2 examples from India, and I have personally seen an example abroad where monuments not being kept, not being maintained in the way that we wanted to maintain them. That is why adaptive reuse is so much more socially beneficial for heritage conservation. In conclusion, adaptive reuse of a historical building should have minimal impact on its heritage significance. Developers should gain understanding of why building has heritage status and then engage in development which is sympathetic to the building to give it a new purpose. Life cycle enhancement takes place through the retention of heritage buildings and their adaptation into accessible and usable buildings. Reuse of heritage buildings in established residential areas can provide community with new housing and commercial property opportunities while keeping urban sprawl restricted. Communities, governments and developers seek ways to reduce environmental, social and economic costs of rising urban development in an entirely sustainable process. The realization is the quality and design of the built environment is vital to our standard of living and our impact upon our natural resources. Moreover, as we go forward into a net zero carbon world, we would require our economies to be circular economies where we reuse, recycle, renew not only buildings but all objects, but because as we are architects, our focus is how we can renew and recycle our buildings, how we can adaptively reuse them and make them a very strong pillar of a circular economy. We have seen this case study from a power station to an art gallery, the Tate Modern. These are some of the internal pictures of the Tate Modern. So the why add and not pull down? Perfect way to give new life to old buildings while conserving resources, historic value and saving embodied energy, embodied carbon. This is few examples of how buildings have been adaptively reused. For example, here a 13th century cathedral is now a 3-story bookshelf. It has been preserved, it has a steel structure, 3 levels of bookshelf which have been put in place and they do not touch the walls. So they are trying to maintain, preserve the heritage building very properly. Or this old building has been converted into a hotel in the US, a warehouse into a trendy hotel, restoration using the brickwork, the windows, the wooden ceilings of the old building and even preserving the industrial character of the building. This is the White Hotel in the US. Or this energy bunker in Germany in 2013. Energy bunker converted from a war relic into a renewable energy power plant and a community facility. Transformed a military fortress, a bunker, into a green energy hub symbolizing peace and environmental renewal. It's biomass plant, it's got solar panels, it's got heat storage systems, it's got a cafeteria with a panoramic view on the upper floor. It provides heat and electricity for about 3,000 households in the surrounding neighborhood, thus integrating energy infrastructure into the urban life. It is a concrete structure which is our heritage landmark. It's a retrofit with the retrofit that has been done is that of insulation and the use of modern technology. Thus, it provides 85% renewable heat and cuts carbon emissions by 95%. The energy bunker or the Zeitz Museum in South Africa. So, another thing you find is how varying countries, geographically, we are seeing different parts of the world where these projects are coming up. This one in the Netherlands, the USA, Germany and now South Africa. There in the Zeitz Museum, a grain silo of 42 concrete tubes has been converted into an art museum. So industrial heritage into cultural use, a landmark of adaptive reuse. It features a carved central atrium with these curved glass windows, an exhibition space on 9 floors, multiple galleries, education spaces, rooftop sculpture garden, public areas that have brought new life into a structure that was meant for grain storage earlier. The transformation made it into a beacon of African contemporary art and of urban regeneration in Cape Town in South Africa. Thus we find how wonderfully buildings can be adaptively reused with lot of sensitivity on behalf of the developer and the architect, how we can stop the spread of urban sprawl, how we can benefit economically by reusing an old building which are very durable structures, old structures, how we can benefit in embodied energy, embodied carbon and how we can preserve our cultural heritage. All in all, I believe adaptive reuse is a win-win model for a circular world in the days to come, and it benefits our economy. It helps us to develop a net zero economy. Thank you.